Okay, we are continuing. Oh no. Now it's broken up.
Recording
The
in
YouTube
progress.
version is broken up. Okay, so we are holding on the bottom of the second page, Ois Zion, line 25. We can add and to note about another wondrous thing in the order of the parsha. The pasuk that the Jewish people were going out in an upraised hand. Seemingly, its location should be in when it's telling the story of when they went out of Mitzrayim in Parshas Boy. Beshalach, or at least in the beginning of Parshas Beshalach. Immediately after the beginning, that was when Pari sent out the nation. The pasuk should have said, "Ubnei Yisrael yotzim biyad Rama," that the Bnei Yisrael are going out in an outstretched hand, or a raised up hand. Only afterwards it should have said, that Hashem did not lead them through the land of Plishtim. But that's not the way it says. I will say that Parshu, but the order of the Parsha is Shetchil Masupar, Shepari Chazurpai. After saying that Pari sent out the nation, and it says that Hashem did not go with them, did not lead them through the land of Plishtim, then it says that the whole way how they went out and Pari was like upset after they took the bones of Yosef out and so on, and then it says, I will say that Parshu Shetchilim Masupar Shapari Chazar by. First it says about V'yafich Levav Pari, that Pari regretted sending them out. And in Kol Geulah, with the entire greatness of Havchodah Shemeshchab Ksuvim, with the whole idea of the fear that the continuation of the Psukim say, that it continues saying over there, they took out 600 chosen riders and these officers upon them. And he pursued the Yidden. After all of that, the Torah says, at the end of Sheni, at the end of the Chitas of Terei of Rishon, that's where it says, it doesn't make any sense in the order of things. In the order of the Psukim, it should have said right away when it speaks about the Yidden going out of Mitzrayim, at the initial part, either at the end of Parshas Boy or at the initial part of Parshas Beshalach, that's where it should talk about it. Not after talking about how Paroi was chasing after them, and then it says Yidden are going out with an upraised arm. The order of things seems to be incorrect. So he says in line 3, the idea behind this is the intention of the pasuk is to teach us, even when we see that a guy is regretting his promises. This does not impress the Yidden. They do not become influenced by the fact that there is a pari. And he has 600,000 chosen riders and officers upon them. Despite them seeing all of this, Yidden go out with an upraised hand. Since their upraised hand is connected with the high might and the well-known might of Hashem, it's the source of the power of the Yidden. Like it's brought down the Mechilta on the pasuk. So the Mechilta says in this pasuk, Yidden are going out with an upraised hand. Magid Akos of the pasuk is telling us, when the Egyptians were pursuing the Yidden, they were using, they were scoffing and angering and shaming and using all types of negative language against Hashem. Al Yisrael Meroimim Meshabchim V'Noisen Shevach V'Geulah V'Tila V'Tiferes Mishabach Shaloi. But Yidden were exalting and praising and giving praise and greatness and other types of expressions of praise and beauty to the one who it's his war. Hashem Mishmalchama Ki In Yeshanemar, like it says in Hashem Elokai Ata, Hashem, you are my God. I will raise you up and I will praise your name. So this is the contrast between how this was by the Yidden versus how this was by the others. So he says, when you get line 11, and in this time of the year when the day of the yahrzeit of the previous Rebbe is connected with Parsh Beshalach, Yeshirom Yuchedes, there is a specific lesson, Shalamedim, in a Kudus called Parsha Kula, that we derive from the point of the entire Parsha. The exodus of Mitzrayim in such a way that we take along with it all the sparks of holiness. How much more so, not even one Yid remains in the exile of Mitzrayim. In a similar vein, in a similar manner, will be the final and true and complete redemption. Another primary point is Yidden are going out with a raised up hand. In all concerning all the matters that a Yid will have to be involved in the days following this upcoming Motzoei Shabbos, he's given power from above. They should be able to be involved in it with an open, raised manner. Not to be affected and influenced by anyone. As long as we praise and we exalt to whom the war is his, Hashem, you are our God, I will raise you up. And as a continuation, this becomes the splitting of the sea. We go to a good and broad land with a true and complete redemption through Moshiach. Speedily mamish. Line 21. Concerning the pasuk that the Yidden are going out with a raised up hand. There is an analysis and examination of the fact that over here it doesn't use the word like it says at the beginning of the parsha. The beginning of the parsha it says Vayhi Beshalach Paris It was when the Paris sent the nation. Elakan Nemar Al Kulam. Here it says about everyone Ubnei Yisrael Yotzim B'Yad Rama, that the children of Yisrael are going out with an upraised hand. It's brought down the Zoyar in the well-known section, in the Zoyar section that's called Raya Mehemna. This section is well known as it is quoted in Igeres HaKodesh and Tanya, concerning the future redemption. That it says, with this book of yours, with this compilation of yours, of the Zoyar, in other words, Yafkin Beimin Galusa Berachmin, they will go out of exile with mercy. And in continuation to that part of the Zoyar, there's something that's not brought down in Tanya. It says, Mevairi explains, that what we find about all the different wonders about the days of Moshiach, we find in the words of Chazal about how complete food and clothing will grow on trees, all different types of miraculous things that we find about Moshiach's times. There is the well-known Maimer Chazal that there's no difference between nowadays and when Moshiach comes, only that nowadays we're still under other governments. When Moshiach comes, will be self-governing, will be governed by Moshiach from the house of David. So how do we reconcile these two Maimorei Chazal? That many Maimorei Chazal speaks about miraculous things that will take place when Moshiach comes, and in the other Maimer Chazal, it seems to talk about that There won't be anything out of the ordinary. So the Zohar explains, those that will remain, heaven forbid, in the state of the nations of the earth. In other words, completely ignorant and uninterested and uninvolved. In Misitrayu leis bengaluso lemois Moshiach al Shvat Malchus Bilvad. From their perspective, their experience, it will be that the only experiential difference that they will feel is only the enslavement of the kings, that they will be free of foreign governments. As opposed to Talmid Chachamim, the Rebbe says Talmid Chacham does not only mean those that are actually sitting and studying Torah, but the Rebbe makes a broad umbrella, Elu Shaloimdim Torah, both those that study Torah, V'chein Elu Shem Tamchin L'Arais, and also those that support Torah and Torah study. In other words, when we're talking about Amaretz and Talmid Chacham, we're not talking here about people with less or more knowledge of Torah study. We're talking about people that are involved in Torah and mitzvahs and people that are uninterested. So they will experience all the miraculous and unbelievable and powerful descriptions that are spoken about the wonder it's going to be about the Moshiach. So the Rebbe goes on the brackets, line 30. This is also one of the explanations in the opinion of the Rambam and the view of the Rambam. Like the Rebbe spoke at length in the summer of that year of when this Farbrengen took place. We see contradictions in the words of the Rambam as well, similar to this contradiction between the Gemaras. Does he hold like the opinion that the only difference between the days of Moshiach and present times is only whether we're going to be under other governments or we're going to be self-governing? Or the Rambam holds like the opinion that makes the qualities of the days of Moshiach unbelievable, because again, it depends who the Rambam is talking about. So now, what's the connection with the question that we had before? Why in the beginning of the parasha does it say Vahi Beshalach Pares Ha'am, and at the end of today's Chumash it says Ubnei Yisrael Yotzim B'Yad Rama? Why over there does it use the word Am, just plain generic nation, and here he says Bnei Yisrael? So at the top of the next page he says U'Mesayim Sham B'Negel Achiluk Ben Am Yoros Talmidei Chachamim. And the Zohar over there, the Raya Mehemna, concludes concerning the difference between the uninvolved people with the people that are involved. Amei Haaretz, or what it says, Amei, that's the Amei Haaretz, those are uninvolved. Yisrael, the title Yisrael, as in Bnei Yisrael, that's Talmidei Chachamim. Ubeginayu itmar Bnei Yisrael yotzim b'yad Rama. Concerning them, it says that the Bnei Yisrael, the Talmidei Chachamim, those that are involved, they will go out with an upraised arm. Meaning, v'hainu, the difference is, since we are holding at a level of Bnei Yisrael, that once we are at a higher level than Bnei Yisrael, higher than the level of that spoke the nation that speaks about at the beginning of the parsha. Therefore, they're going out of Mitzrayim with an upraised arm. In other words, upraised hand. In other words, the beginning of the parsha is talking about those who will be out of the government's control. That applies even to those people that are Ameyaratzim. Beshalach Pares Yad Rama, the might and power and unbelievable stuff above everything. That's Bnei Yisrael. That's those that are involved in holy matters, those that support Talmidei Chacham, those that are Talmidei Chacham, and so on. As always, the Rebbe does not just leave it at that there's Chas v'Sholem, some exclusion amongst Klal Yisrael, but the Rebbe brings in that these exclusions are not applicable now. Ois Yud line 9. V'hini yadu maimer Rabbeinu Hazakim, that's known, the saying of the Alter Rebbe, shebezman neinu, that in these days, ein amei ha'aretz k'mo shehoyser me'ashas. There are no amei ha'aretz like it was when the Chazal referred to amei ha'aretz. So there's a lot of expressions in Chazal that have a very negative connotation about amei ha'aretz. Sadly, it was adopted by people in later generations to just mean anybody that is ignorant in Torah learning. They're an amei ha'aretz, and somehow or other it became from that evolved that all the negative things that Chazal speak about amei ha'aretz applies to a person that didn't have the benefit of Torah study. Says the Alter Rebbe, no. The amei ha'aretz of the times of the Gemara do not exist at present. That was a level of complete disinterest and uninvolvement that we don't have now. But also, the flip side of that is as well, that's also true, that the Talmud Chacham of the time of the Gemara is also not in existence now, as we all always know about that, as the generations proceeded, in general, all the people in generation descended lower and lower. So therefore, based on this idea that the Alter Rebbe says in Torah, moving line 11, for this is understood, what it says in the Zohar, it's about the amei ha'aretz, that from their perspective, on their side, there's no difference between Geulah to the days of Moshiach, only the enslavement of government enslavement. It only applies to those amei ha'aratzim that are completely devoid of any type of matter. In other words, they are completely disconnected with anything whatsoever having to do with Yiddishkeit. Those people will only experience Moshiach in the most physical, mundane level, that they have, just a different government. Not the foreign government, they will self-govern. Those that have a connection with supporters of Torah, which is very interesting. You could have, we find this throughout many Yidden all over the world, Chabad house supporters, that they themselves in their own private lives may not be the most, observant of every single mitzvah. But they support Torah, they support Jewish schools, they support Chabad house, etc., etc. Because of how important supporters of Torah are, the Chazal preface and say first, and in the bracha of Moshe Rabbeinu to the Shvatim, they preface Zvulun to Yisachar. Zvulun was the businessman that used to travel out on the sea. Yisachar was the one that sat and learned. Zvulun supported Yisachar because he was a supporter of Torah. He got even first mentioned before those that studied Torah. So we see how powerful a Torah supporter is, that in some regards he even precedes the one who's studying Torah. Ubefrat, how much more so if the supporters are not only supporters, if they are studying Torah on their own, at least the bare minimum, which is one chapter in the morning and one chapter in the evening. So then they're in the level of Bnei Yisrael. Therefore they go out with an upraised hand. In other words, what the Rebbe is saying is, the Am Ha'aretz that were excluded in the Zohar's times don't apply now. Everybody will be included. And then the Rebbe says, that doesn't mean that we don't have to strive for more. Sometimes when we hear the Rebbe speaking about being so inclusive, he says, okay, I can lay back, I can sit on my recliner and just enjoy life. We're all in the mix, we're all there. So the Rebbe says, no. That doesn't mean, that's not an excuse to just take it easy. Says Omnam. He says in line 16, Gam b'bnei Yisrael atzmam yesh kama dargis, also amongst the Yidden themselves there's many levels. Al derech sheyesh kama dargis Talmidei Chachamim shekulam nikroim b'shem b'nei Yisrael. Just like there's many levels in Talmidei Chachamim that they're all called b'nei Yisrael. Since we want it should increase as much as possible in Hashem's upraised hand when He takes us out of Geulah, so we have to contribute to that in being much more of the Bnei Yisrael, being much more of those called Talmidei Chachamim. It's understood we need to add even more so in the cause and the vessel for this. Dargis Talmidei Chachamim, the level Talmidei Chachamim, shebeginayu itmar bnei Yisrael yotzim biyad rama, that for their sake it says that the Yidden are going out with an upraised hand. So if we want to have a greater upraised hand, we need to add in this Talmid Chacham, to put it differently, b'milim pshutis, in simple words. As much as a person studied and remembers and knows up to this moment, he should not be satisfied with this. Just the opposite. Someone that has 100 wants 200. And when he already assured himself that he has 200, he has to want 400. Like was established in the nature of people out of their own natural state. That's how it has to be concerning Torah. That its business is better than all type of business. It is more precious than precious jewels and so on. Let us skip over to the next page. Let's go to line 9. Concerning our matter, like we spoke about many times. When we all gather together concerning an event that's connected with a established approach in serving Hashem, in how one has to educate the generation, a direction and influence on all those that will be listening to this. In our situation, we're talking about we're talking about the directives and the education of the one whose yahrzeit is a Yud Shvat, the Friedrich Rebbe. That from him we will see, and we will also do so, to be involved in a way of self-sacrifice concerning children's Torah study, which is the part he spoke about in the previous lines. And along with this, also the idea of Torah study in the way of increasing the Torah and adorning the Torah in the ultimate way. In other words, not just to be satisfied with teaching children, but to grow in one's own Torah study, both in the revealed part of Torah and the inner part of Torah. It has to be like in all matters that one has to adorn themselves. It's not just enough to worry about Jewish children. One also has to beautify themselves. First and foremost, a person has to influence themselves that way. Like we spoke about earlier, to add and set times for studying Torah, continuing and adding in light. And afterwards, even when he meets an additional Jew, he has to immediately ask him in a pleasant manner, in a way of bringing the hearts closer, not in an accusing manner, in a negative way. You have to question them about setting aside times for learning Torah. To explain them, he has to increase in the study of Torah so much more so in a way of increasing and illuminating. Let's skip over to line 24, second paragraph from the bottom. And with this will be fulfilled the promise that the Torah promised Yisrael, that eventually Yisrael, Shesoif Kol Soif Nasim Kulam B'Dargas in Yisrael, eventually all Yidden will be in the level of Bnei Yisrael, not in but Bnei Yisrael. Lasses Tshuva B'Soif Galusan, to do Tshuva at the end of their exile, Miyad Henigolm, and immediately they're redeemed. Shenemar, as it says, V'hoiki Avoy Alecha Kol Advarim V'Goymer, it will be when all these matters will come upon you. V'shavta Hashem Elokecha, you will return to Hashem your God. V'shav Hashem Elokecha Goymer, and Hashem will return. Mishukos of Aram, like the Rambam writes, Geulah mitzvah shleino agol didam, the true and complete redemption in our times, like the Moshiach that came through Moshiach, with Bnei Yisrael yotzim biyad Rama, and such a manner that Yidden are going out in a raised up hand.